had that vinyl because I'm a huge Bacharach fan, and I played it. I'm like, sure enough, it's Jimmy Page.
You know,
who I toured with, by the way.
Page.
Yeah, I auditioned for the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger called my house. My telephone number is unlisted. It's Greg there. I thought it was a joke. Long story short, I'm like, how'd you get my number? He goes, we're the Rolling Stones, mate. So I auditioned to the Stones, and that was a great experience. It was just the four of them and me, Ronnie, Keith, Charlie, and Mick, and me in a room. It was pretty intimidating.
Wow.
But it went very well. They told me later that they really liked me, but unfortunately didn't get the gig. That would have been nice. I was really hoping for that. But a couple years later, when Jimmy Page was going to do a tour, I got a call from them, went and auditioned for him, got the gig. I was not going to let that one go by, and I asked him, how do you know about me? He said, I called up Keith and Mick, and they gave me your number.
Wow.
So the Stones recommended me to Jimmy Page.
Wow, that's
pretty awesome, huh?
That is extremely awesome. And the way things worked out, I think hindsight's 2020. I think everything worked out pretty good.
It worked out pretty good. I think my bank account would have been a little fatter with the Stones, but it's not all about money. It's about the soul of the music.
Absolutely.
Which is what I'm about.
Absolutely. So I think in 1990, the summer of 1990, I think I almost crossed paths with you as a spectator. I was going to go to that Robert Cray, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, and Buddy Guy big tour.
Yeah.
And I always said, well, I could go see, the reason I was going to go was for Stevie.
Sure.
I could only catch him at any time since he was such a youngster at the time. But that didn't happen. Talk about how that tour came about, because you were there at the inception of that tour as well.
Yeah, well, I live in Chicago. Stevie was doing a gig in Ann Arbor, which is about 4 hours away, and he called and said, I'm playing in Ann Arbor, why don't you come out? So I drove all the way out to see him play. He was on fire, and we were hanging out afterwards and, saying goodbye. He goes, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I don't know, I'm driving home now. He goes, well, Eric invited me to play at the the basketball stadium.
Eric Clapton.
Yeah, I think it's the Palace of Auburn Hills or something. He goes, why don't you stick around? So okay, cool. I'm not doing anything tomorrow. So I checked in the hotel that Stevie was staying at, and the next day they had a vehicle come and pick us up, and we went to this gig. Stevie sat in with Eric, just smoked. It was unbelievable. And afterwards in the dressing room, Eric said, I'm doing this gig at Alpine Valley. Would you like to come and play? And Stevie said yes. So I was there that moment when Eric invited Stevie to play at this Alpine Valley thing. And that day of the Alpine Valley thing, I flew up in the helicopter with Clapton up to the gig, the whole show and everything. Stevie was amazing that day. It's interesting to think back about it because he was on fire. There was this kind of a glow. Now, when you think back about it, it kind of makes sense. It had this glow, and he was just playing incredibly. And there was an interesting moment, which I still use to this day. Stevie was playing, and Eric came on the side of the stage, which is where I was watching from. And Stevie was killing it, and Eric goes, how am I going to follow this? And I said, well, two things. You're not going to be able to follow this, but you're Eric Clapton, so you don't really have to, do you? So he went up and did his show, and was nowhere near as monumental as the Stevie show, but people loved him anyway, because he's Clapton, and he's a superb musician. So that was interesting for me. Clapton being nervous about not being able to follow Stevie, but he went up and smoked anyway. So, like, if we do a lot of festivals with John, and if there's some great bands playing before us, and I'm like, that's pretty incredible. How are we going to follow this? Well, you're not going to. You just go up and be yourself.
Right.
And play.
So Stevie that night played like it would be his last show ever. He put everything into it.
It seemed like it to me.
Was that his last show ever?
It really was, because at the end of the evening, we all went out and got in the helicopters.
Including you.
Yep. And the weather was horrible and extremely foggy. It was just terrible. And